Hello, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Well, many of us like movies, and many of us treasure the precious metals gold and silver. Well, here this little infographic takes us back in time through the modern day about the golden moments of the silver screen. And it just goes to show you how much of a role the precious metals have in even Western culture. The Maltese Falcon is the first one on this list. The original from 1941 stars Humphrey Bogart as Detective Sam Spade, who becomes entangled with criminals looking for a black figure of a bird. The figure in question is the legendary Maltese Falcon, a life-size golden falcon encrusted with rare jewels. Spade does eventually get his hands on the figure, but it turns out to be a fake. And by the way, on this little thing, it talks about how a 16th century Spanish Emperor Charles V received a live falcon bird each year as a tribute from the Knights of Malta. And some of you may remember a previous video I did about a Maltese falcon, basically a golden statue that was stolen. And we probably perceive that it could have been some insurance fraud related to that. Haven't heard anything about if they found that or not, by the way. And then here in 1948, we have the treasure of the Sierra Madre. Cheated out of their wages from drilling oil in Mexico, two poor U.S. workers team up with a gold prospector looking for a legendary mine in the remote Sierra Madre Mountains. After battling local bandits, the violent Federales army, and harsh desert conditions, their joy of finding the gold is short-lived. It was filmed on location in Mexico. This is one of the first American films to be made almost entirely outside of the United States. Very interesting. I've never seen this movie, but perhaps some of you have. And then we have in 1951 the Lavender Hill mob. Tired of his job as a clerk mangling gold deliveries at the Bank of England, Henry Holland, paid by Sir Alec Guinness, comes up with a plan to steal a shipment of bars, melt them down, and smuggle the gold to France disguised as paperweights in the shape of the Eiffel Tower. But what is one of these solid gold souvenirs gets in the hands of a tourist? Well, it'd be much easier to disguise it as a paperweight, a cheap knockoff of the Eiffel Tower there in short size, than to stick the gold up your bum, that's for sure. In a previous video I did about that. The idea of the paperweights was based on reality as crooks tried to get around the UK's gold export ban following World War II. Very interesting indeed. And then we have a very famous film called The Ten Commandments, which was released in 1956. Waiting in the desert for their leader Moses to return, a group of former slaves create a golden calf as an idol to please their former master, Egyptian King Ramses. Back from Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments from their God, the furious Moses throws the stone tablets he's carrying as the idol, causing it to explode and killing those who made it. It was filmed on location in Egypt and starring a cast of thousands. This was the most expensive movie ever made at that time. Wow, I wonder how many ounces of gold, in translation from dollars, that it took to make this movie. Quite interesting, and I've not seen that one either. Goldfinger. And yes, it's a sort of a play on words from my last video about gold being smuggled up the bum of a Sri Lankan dude. But this 1964 film starred James Bond. Sean Connery as James Bond is left shaken when he wakens to find his latest conquest lying dead beside him after betraying gold-obsessed villain Goldfinger. Jill has been knocked unconscious by his henchman Oddjob, who was then covered her body in gold paint, causing her to die from skin asphyxiation, a fictional affiliation. Pinewood Studios built the life-size replica of Fort Knox, Real Address Bullion Boulevard, and Gold Vault Road, Kentucky. Wow. That's pretty cool, pretty interesting indeed. Here we have a very classic film from 1966 starring Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Great movie. Set during the American Civil War, the spaghetti western follows three men, Tuco, Blondie, and Angel Eyes, as they race to find Confederate gold buried in a remote cemetery. As the film comes to a conclusion, Tuco and Blondie, having killed Angel Eyes, dig up a grave marked unknown and discover the bags of gold they had been looking for. The $200,000 worth of gold the trio found would now be worth over $18.5 million. Quite interesting indeed. In fact, there was a reality show on the small screen about Confederate Gold from a few years ago. And it was a quite interesting documentary. They never did find it, but they ended up saying that they should move out west of Texas, which looks like the scene for some of this movie there. Out west is where some of this gold could have been laid there. And then The Italian Job from 1969, the original. As you know, they did a remake of this recently, a few years ago. Fresh out of prison, Charlie Crocker gets a tip from the widow of a murdered Italian gangster about how to steal $4 million of gold in Turin. Bankrolled by an aristocrat crime lord in disguise as football fans who jam the city's traffic system, Crocker's gang of thieves and getaway drivers race away from the Polizia in 3 Mini Coopers laden with gold. But can they escape the mafia and safely get loot over the steep alpine roads? Michael Caine's iconic role as cheeky Cockney crook Cocker has first intended for American heartthrob Robert Redford. All right. I'd never seen the original. I think I did see the remake, though. Pretty good movie. Kelly's Heroes. This movie from 1970 is a classic. If you've not seen it, you should see it. It's a great movie for sure. After learning from a drunk German colonel that there's a bank vault containing 14,000 gold bars behind enemy lines, a group of U.S. soldiers stationed in France sets about stealing it. Once at the bank, the soldiers need the Germans' help to get any further. Thus, the two sides work together to break into the vault and split the contents. The film was inspired by the real story of renegade Nazis and American officers making off with hidden Nazi gold at the end of World War II. Very interesting. So I didn't realize it was based off of a true story. Here's another classic from 1971. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Poor Charlie Bucket can only dream of finding one of the 5 golden tickets hidden in the chocolate bars by reclusive candy millionaire Willy Wonka. Fortunately, after finding money in the gutter, Charlie buys himself and his Grandpa Joe a chocolate bar each. And inside each one is the last remaining ticket, granting Charlie access to the magical world of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. The factory's chocolate river was made using chocolate water and cream. By the end of the filming, the set smelled terrible. And really the only gold in this movie is the ticket. And so it's kind of a stretch for that one. But nonetheless, the golden ticket is something that we obviously still talk about in popular culture today. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. The opening sequence of George Lucas's 4-part blockbuster franchise sees Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, acquiring the first ancient artifact, establishing him as a treasure hunter. In order to get his hands on the fertility idol, Jones has to counter several booby traps set by the Chopian tribe and ultimately loses out in taking the object. While on the set visiting her from husband Harrison Ford, Melissa Matheson and Steven Spielberg created the story for E.T. Interesting. That's how E.T. was born. All right, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. From 1983, Princess Leia's iconic gold slave girl costume confirmed Carrie Fisher as a movie star pinup, becoming a staple of fancy dress parties today. Worn whilst Leia was held captive by Jabba the Hutt. The gold outfit is all the more memorable for being such a far cry from her usual attire of flowing robes. There were several versions of the iconic costume. One made from rubber was used for stunt scenes as it was more comfortable. It's a very interesting, yes indeed. Three Kings in 1999, another really good movie. George Clooney leads a group of U.S. soldiers in search of stolen Kuwaiti gold after the first Gulf War ends. Whilst finding the gold is simple enough, the soldiers hadn't counted on finding persecuted Iraqis in need of their help. A change of heart sees the soldiers achieve safe passage into Iran for the Iraqis, and the gold ends up being returned to Kuwait. Well, most of it anyway. The role of Archie Gates, played by Clooney, was written with Clint Eastwood in mind. However, he was decided a younger actor should play the part. Very interesting, very cool indeed. Also, Ice Cube also starred in that movie as well. All right, from 2011, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Armed with a polyjuice potion and an invisibility cloak, Harry, Ron, and Hermione break into Gringotts wizarding bank to find one of the Voldemort's last Horcruxes. Despite a protective charm causing the items within the vault to burn their skin, the trio find Helga Hufflepuff's cup and make their escape on the back of an enraged, half-blind dragon. 2010 or 210,000 coins were made for the scene inside the vault at Gringotts. Interesting. I wonder if those are available somehow for sale to Harry Potter fans and coin collectors alike. All right, this Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug from 2013. And this was a fascinating movie indeed. The second film in Peter Jackson's trilogy of J.R.R. Tolkien's novel. This sees Bilbo Baggins. Shout out to Baggins, our very own Baggins here for this one. And his wizard friend Gandalf help Thorin, leader of the dwarves, try and take back his mountain kingdom from Smaug, the treasure-hoarding dragon. Also smell a shout out to Blanche P, who has the Smaug hoarding the gold as his avatar picture for his YouTube account here. 170,000 gold-plated aluminum coins were used in shooting the scene in Smaug's lair. Dang it, aluminum. But still pretty neat that they were produced. And I would love to see one of those, or if anybody has them, or if they're for sale. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. But the story doesn't end here, even though it's the end of this infographic. There's another movie that was released in 2016 starring Matthew McConaughey called Gold. And it's based on a too good to be true story. It does have some elements of truth in it, but it's a long movie, and it's somewhat slow at times, but I tell you, it is great. And Matthew McConaughey is hands down probably one of the best actors out there, in my view, today. And he plays this role to a T. He is not just your typical heartthrob and romantic comedies. He's played those roles as well, but he is a very, very diverse actor. And he killed it on this movie. It was a great performance. I encourage you all to see it. I think it's available on Netflix. I've seen it. And just a really a great movie, great acting for sure in this. And obviously, it's what it's about, gold, finding gold. And it's a great story indeed. So there you have it. Gold and treasure, golden moments on the silver screen. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching and encourage you to please rate, comment, and subscribe.